Chapter X. There is a special providence that looks over recent veterinary graduates, Kennon reflected as he checked the monthly reports from the stations. Since the time he had laid down the law to Judson and Blaylock, he had had no trouble from the production staff, and for the past 4 months, there had been no further trouble with Hepatodyrus. That unwanted visitor had apparently been evicted. At that, they had been lucky. The parasite had been concentrated at Hillside Station and had failed to establish itself in the training area. The intermediate host, it had turned out, was a small amphibian that was susceptible to commercial insecticide. It had been no trouble to eradicate. Systemic treatment and cooking of all food had cleaned up the infective cercaria and individual infections, and after 6 months of intensive search, quarantine, and investigation, Kennon was morally certain that the disease had been eradicated. The last 4 reports confirmed his belief. He sighed as he leaned back in his chair. Blaylock was at last convinced that his ideas were right. The hospital was operating as a hospital should, with a staff of 12 Lani kept busy checking the full wards. Actually, it was working better than it should, since station masters all over the island were now shipping in sick animals rather than treating them or requesting outpatient service. "Hi, Doc," Blaylock said as he pushed the door open and looked into the office. "You doing anything?" "Not at the moment," Kennon said. "Something troubling you?" "No, just thought I'd drop in for a moment and congratulate you." "For what?" "For surviving the first year." "That won't be for 2 months yet." Blaylock shook his head. "This is Kardon," he said. "There's only 302 days in our year, 10 30-day months, and 2 special days at the year's end." Kennon shrugged. "My contract is Galactic Standard. I still have 2 months to go. But how come the 10-month year? Most other planets have 12, regardless of the number of days. Old Alexander liked 30-day months." "I've wondered about that." "You'll find a lot more peculiar things about Flora when you get to know her better. This year has just been a breaking-in period." Kennon chuckled. "It's damn near broken me," he admitted. "You know, I thought that the Lani'd be my principal practice when I came here." "You didn't figure that right. They're the easiest part. They're intelligent and cooperative." "Which is more than one can say about the others." Kennon wiped the sweat from his face. "What with this infernal heat and their eternal stubbornness, I've nearly been driven crazy." "You shouldn't have laid out that vaccination program." "I had to. Your hog business was living mostly on luck, and the sheep and shrakes were almost as bad. You can't get away from soil saprophytes no matter how clean you are. Under a pasture setup, there's always a chance of contamination. And that old cliche about an ounce of prevention is truer of livestock raising than anything else I can think of." "I have some more good news for you," Blaylock said. "That's why I came over. We're going to have another species to treat and vaccinate." Kennon groaned. "Now what?" "Poultry." Blaylock's voice was disgusted. "Personally, I think it's a mess, but Alexander thinks it's profitable. Someone's told him that pound for pound, chickens are the most efficient feed converters of all the domestic animals. So we're getting a pilot plant, eggs, incubator, and a knocked-down broiler battery so we can try the idea out. The boss man is always hot on new ideas to increase efficiency and production. The only trouble is that he fails to consider the work involved in setting up another operation." "You're so right. I'll have to brush up on pullurum, ornithosis, coccidosis, leucosis, porosis, and Ochsner knows how many other osises and itises. I was never too strong on fowl practice in school, and I'd be happier if I never had anything to do with them." "So would I," Blaylock agreed. "I can't see anything in this but trouble." Kennon nodded. "And he's forgotten something else," Blaylock added. "Poultry need concentrated feed. We're going to have to install a feed mill." Kennon chuckled. "I hope he'll appreciate the bill he gets." "He thinks we can use local labor," Blaylock said gloomily. "I wish he'd realize that Lani are technological morons." "They could learn." "I suppose so, but it's not easy. And besides, Allworth is the only man with feed mill experience, and he's up to his ears with Hillside Station since that expansion order came in." "I never did get the reason for that. After we complained about the slavery implications and got the boss man's okay to hold the line, why do we need more Lani?" Didn't you know? His sisters finally decided to try marriage, found herself some over-muscled Halesite who looked good to her, but she couldn't crack his moral barrier. Blaylock grinned. I thought you'd be the first to know. Wasn't she interested in you? Kennon chuckled. You could call it that. Interested, like the way a dog's interested in a beefsteak. It's a good thing we had that fluke problem, or I'd have been chewed up and digested long ago. That woman frightens me. I could be scared by uglier things, Blaylock said. With the boss man's sister on my side, I wouldn't worry. What makes you think she'd be on my side? She's a cannibal. Well, you know her better than I do. He did. He certainly did. That first month had been one of the worst he had ever spent, Kennon reflected. Between Eloise and the flukes, he had nearly collapsed. And when it had come to the final showdown, he thought for a while that he'd be looking for another job. But Alexander had been more than passably understanding and had refused his sister's passionate pleas for a bait and scalp. He owed a debt of gratitude to the boss man. You're lucky you never knew her, Kennon said. That all depends on what you mean, Blaylock said as he grinned and walked to the door. The parting shot missed its mark entirely as Kennon looked at him with blank incomprehension. You should have been a mystic, Blaylock said. A knowledge of the sacred books would do you no end of good. And with that cryptic remark, the superintendent vanished. That had all the elements of a snide remark, Kennon murmured to himself. But my education's been neglected somewhere along the line. I don't get it. He shrugged and buzzed for Copper. The veterinary report would have to be added to the pile already before him, and the boss man liked to have his reports on time. Copper watched Kennon as he dictated the covering letter, her slim fingers dancing over the stenotype. He had been here a full year, but instead of becoming a familiar object, he had grown so gigantic that he filled her world. And it wasn't merely because he was young and beautiful. He was kind, too. Yet she couldn't approach him, and she wanted to so desperately that it was a physical pain. Other Lani had told her about men and what they could do. Even her old preceptress at Hillside Station had given her some advice when Man Allworth had tattooed the tiny V on her thigh that meant she had been selected for the veterinary staff. And when old Doc had brought her from the training station to the hospital and removed her tail, she was certain that she was one of the lucky ones who would know love. But love wasn't a pain in the chest, an ache in the belly and thighs, an unfulfilled longing that destroyed sleep and made food tasteless. Love was supposed to be pleasant and exciting. She could remember every word her preceptress had spoken. My little one, the old Lani had said, you now wear the doctor's mark, and soon no one will be able to tell you from a human. You will look like our masters, you will share in their work, and there may be times when you will find favor in their eyes. Then you may learn of love. Love, the old voice was soft in Copper's ears. The word is almost a stranger to us now, known only to the few who serve our masters. It was not always so. The old ones knew love before Man Alexander came, and our young were the fruit of love rather than the product of our master's cunning. But you may know the flower even though you cannot bear its fruit. You may enter that world of pleasure-pain the old ones knew, that world which is now denied us. But remember always that you are a Lani. A man may be kind to you, he may treat you gently, he may show you love, yet you never will be his equal. Nor must you become too attached to him, for you are not human. You are not his natural mate. You cannot completely share. You can only accept. So if love should come to you, take it and enjoy it, but do not try to possess it, for there lies heartache rather than happiness. And it is a world of heartache, my little one, to long for something which you cannot have. To long for something which one cannot have. Copper knew that feeling. It had been with her ever since Kennon had come into her life that night a year ago, and it had grown until it had become gigantic. He was kind, yes. He was harsh occasionally, yet he had shown her no more affection than he would have shown a dog. Less, for he would have petted a dog and he did not touch her. He laughed, but she was not a part of his laughter. He needed her, but the need was that of a builder for a tool. He liked her, and sometimes shared his problems and triumphs with her, and sometimes his defeats, but he did not love. There had never been for her the bright, fierce look he had bent upon the woman Eloise, those times when she had come to him, the look men give to those who found favor in their eyes. Had he looked at her but once with that expression, she would have come to him though fire barred the way. The woman Eloise was a fool. Copper looked at him across the corner of the desk, the yellow hair, the bronze skin, firm chin, soft lips, and long straight nose, the narrowed eyes hooded beneath thick brows, scanning the papers in his lean tendoned hands. His nearness was an ache in her body, yet he was far away. She thought of how his hands would feel upon her. He had touched her once, and that touch had burned like hot iron. For hours she had felt it. He looked up. Her heart choked her with its beating. She would die for him if he would but once run his fingers over her tingling skin and stroke her hair. The naked emotion in Copper's face was readable enough, Kennon thought. One didn't need Sorevkin techniques to interpret what was in her mind. And it would have been amusing if it weren't so sad. For what she wanted, he couldn't give. Yet if she were human, it would be easy. 100 generations of Baton moral code said never. Yet when he looked at